Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Nika and welcome to my booktube channel. Welcome back if you have been a subscriber for quite some time, but if you are new, don't forget to click on the thumbs up icon down below and subscribe if you haven't already. So today's video is going to be about all the books I read in May. However, there is a catch. I'm going to be doing these videos in a new format just so it's easier for the audience to view and for me to film as well, and just so that the net worth from this video is worth it. So that's a lot of worth in one sentence, but without further ado, we're gonna dive right in, and as we go on, you'll obviously get to know about what this new format is basically. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive right in. Alright, so I have all my notes here, notes as in my list, my bullet journal where I keep a record of all the books I read every month. So anyway, the number of books I read in May was 33 this time, which I think is quite a good number. I mean, it's definitely more than a number of days in the month, but in my new format, I'm not going to be talking about all the 33 books that I've read, because I think some of these are not really, I would say, really good. There's no use for me to let you know about all of them. Rather, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you about the best books among the different genres that I read, and we'll go with that. So the first genre that I want to talk about is fantasy, and these were some amazing books that I read. Right, so firstly, I read When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Nhi Vo. This is a fantasy, Asian inspired fantasy. It also stars it also has a non-binary main character, and within the story, the idea of storytelling as a device is really important, because even the characters are telling a story, right? So it's very interesting. I also have a video where I talk about some amazing fantasy books by Asian authors, so you should definitely check that out. I'll make sure to link it somewhere up here. I'm not sure this or this side, but I'll do that, and you should definitely check it out. I rated it 4 stars. I also read The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nhi Vo last in April, and I really loved that one as well. And so yeah, this was the book. Then I also read 2 fantasy, I won't really say fantasy, really, that's not fair, but I read 2 middle grade within sort of this genre, because it has Asian rep, and that's why I'm going to include it here. And those were Amy Wu and the Perfect Bow, and Amy Wu and the Patchwork Dragon. And it has been written by Kat Zhang, and I have to say that these are very short. I actually listened to them as audiobooks. These were very short and very sweet stories, definitely middle grade, and if you have a little brother or sister, I think they can definitely check this one out. So I rated both of them 3 stars individually, and basically we follow Amy Wu, who is a little kid going to school, and her interactions with her grandmother, with her family, and mostly with her classmates. So it's really interesting to see how she navigates that scenario, especially since she is an Asian character in a predominantly Western white classroom. So it's really interesting to see. And the next fantasy Asian book that I'm going to talk about is The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water by Zen Cho. This was sort of a novella, not exactly a novel length work, it's more so a novella length work, and I have to say that it's very interesting. We follow this ragtag group of thieves, and a nun accompanies them, and we get to see their adventures. Well, or rather one adventure, it's a really elongated long adventure. There's also a lot of history in it, how how do I say this without giving away too much, how they have faced certain oppression from certain regimes, and I don't want to obviously give any spoilers, but yeah, it says a lot about politics, on history, on friendship, on even gender and sexuality, all of that. So I think you should definitely check that one out, because I rated it 4 stars. Definitely worth it, and I'm actually hoping to come across more novellas or fantasy works by Jen Cho. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but yeah, definitely love the work, and I think you should definitely check it out. Then the next category we're going to cover is sort of literary fiction, contemporary fiction, and there's also one non-fiction. Alright, so I finally got to read Daisy Jones and the Six and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, both by Taylor Jenkins Reid, in May. I'm sure you already know what both of these books are about because they are so hyped on social media. And now that I've read both of them, I think they really deserve all that hype. In The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, we follow Evelyn Hugo, who is now an old lady. She used to be a huge star during her days in Hollywood, and basically we get to see her story through as she came from nowhere into becoming the most famous star during her times. And of course through the ages we also see her experience, her story when it comes to all of the 7 husbands that she had, because for so long she had been an enigma, but now that she's old, she is finally giving the chance to a young, not well known, actually that's the catch of the story here, a journalist who's not that well known, to do an interview sort of with her and then make it into a life memoir for her. So what I'm saying is it's kind of mysterious from the get-go, like why does she choose this less known journalist to do this humongous work when there are so many people waiting to just jump up when she just even taps her fingers or anything like that. So it was really interesting. I really loved it. Again, it's a lot about storytelling, and besides any rags to riches story is one you really enjoy. And I think Evelyn Hugo is such a complex and flawed character, so real, and at times you might feel uncomfortable with the actions she takes, with her words. At times you might love her, at times you might think that she's a liar and a cheat. So you get to have a variety of emotions when you're reading the book, and I think it's really, really good. I'll also make sure to link the article that I wrote on it down below, so do make sure to check that one out. Then I also read Daisy Jones and the Six, which is the other book by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is again sort of like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo in the fact that it's about not just one people. This one is about a whole group, a band, and that one was about one movie star. So it's like both of these I think are really like 4 memoirs. And basically in Daisy Jones and the Six, we follow Daisy Jones and the Six, which was a band, and they were really, really popular, rock and roll and all of that during their times. And it reads so well. It's like a interview format, so we have, supposing Daisy who says this, Billy who says this, the interviewer says this, so it's like that. And I think it really works well. However, I would recommend you to check out the audiobook while you're reading, because it's a full cast reading and I think it does wonderful. The voice artists do really well in putting across the idea of that character, and it really stays with you. Overall, the story is really good. We see these characters go through a lot because the 70s, 80s were all sex, drugs, rock and roll. So we get to see all of that emulated via these characters. And I have to say, now that I've read both of these books, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, that the author Taylor Jenkins Reid, has an amazing way with words. She makes you, it feels like you are reading about real people when you're reading these 2 books. If you don't know, like if you go in without knowing the background, you might actually come across thinking that Evelyn Hugo was a real person back in her times in Hollywood, and you just don't know her. And you might think that's the actual story, but it's not. And that is to say, such is the power of the author's work, because she writes really well, really, really well, and is really amazing at creating an atmosphere, a story, and really makes the characters really jump out of the page. So yeah, and then the next book that I read was I would say literary fiction, and I read it as a part of my book of the month for my book club, and it was Girl in White Cotton, or Burnt Sugar by Avni Doshi, which I rated 4 stars. Again, I thought that this was a very, very complex book, and this book has been described as a sort of a love story, a story of love and story of hate between a mother and a daughter, and how their changing dynamics through the years affect their relationships with others around them. However, we get to see more so the story from the point of view of the daughter, so it might kind of influence you into forming your opinions a bit biased, in a biased manner, but then again, it's a story. However, that said, it's also a story that really makes you feel strongly about a subject, which I without giving away any spoilers, like I said, it's a story about a mother and a daughter. So it deals a lot with the mother and daughter relationship, with the mother and daughter dynamics, and surrounds and talks, I won't say talks, but like, well, yeah, it talks. It doesn't talk about it, but more so the characters and their actions revolve around what it means to be a mother and daughter. So the whole dynamic is really put into question, and I think it is done really well. That said, even though I rated it 4-star, I have kind of mixed, complicated feelings about it. So if you have read the book, don't forget to let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below, and I'll surely reply, and it would really help me if I get to see another perspective of the book. Lastly, in this category, I also read a non-fiction, which was Notes on Grief by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. But because of all the chaos that has, I won't say chaos, because of her views, very tough views that she put across in a new essay that came out recently, I'm not going to like dedicate longer period of time than I already have on this book, but overall I rated it 3 stars. So the next category that I'm going to talk about are mystery, thrillers, all of that. Now, before we begin, I have to sort of give a disclaimer that the last time I seriously binge read mystery was most probably when I was in middle grade, when I was reading, you know, Secret 7, Famous 5, Nancy Drew, Agatha Christie, all of that. So it's been quite some time, and that's why when I read all of these books, I had the thoughts that I had. And before you come after me saying that these are not worth it or anything like that, just keep in mind that I'm pretty new to this genre. And that said, also again, if you have any other thriller recommendation, don't forget to leave them down in the comments, because I am looking for some recommendations just along those lines. So I would find that really, really helpful. Okay, the first book that I'm going to talk about in this category is Every Vow You Break by Peter Swanson, which I rated 3 stars. So in this book, basically we follow this bride who is a newlywed basically, and she and her husband come to this island for honeymoon to relax and all of that. But what really shocks her is that she also finds a man with whom she had a one-night stand just before she got married. So she's paranoid that, you know, he might tell her husband and all of that. And there is real weird going ons in the island, because a woman she just makes friends with suddenly disappears and all of that. So it's really, really interesting. It's a lot about patriarchy, about feminism, about misogyny and all of that. And I would really recommend you to read it. That said, I mean, it kind of fell flat a bit, but overall it was quite interesting to see that. And I don't want to really influence you, but you should definitely check it out before letting me influence you in any way. But overall it was quite a good read. I mean, could have been better definitely, but it was okay. Then the next books that I read, well, the 2 next books that I read were both by Lucy Foley. The first one is The Guest List, which is basically taking place on an island again. And in this story, we follow this, you know, the wedding party basically, and they are on the island because a wedding is going to take place, and it's very character driven. There are so many different characters, and they constantly keep on going back in time to their past, how their past affected them, what they did. And it also again is juxtaposed with the actions that they take in the present, which are not at all conducive to the current environment. So it's really interesting, and we follow them from a day before the wedding. So it's really interesting. We get to see a lot of how should I say this? We get to see a lot of backstory to all the characters individually, as well as with respect to their connection to each other. So it's really, really interesting, and I really like this Lucy Foley. The other Lucy Foley book I read is The Hunting Party, which is also basically a group of people who go away to this, you know, kind of lodge away in the mountains where it's snowing, and they are basically stuck there amidst the snow and everything like that. And it's really interesting because something happens, obviously. I mean, so it's really, really interesting. I would definitely recommend you to check it out. Again, that said, I rated The Hunting Party 3.5 stars, whereas I rated The Guest List 3 stars. So I liked The Hunting Party better than The Guest List, just because I think in The Guest List we had a lot of chaos. There were many characters and many backstories. It got kind of confusing, and some bits I felt were unnecessary. But in The Hunting Party we have only a select few people who are like stranded on this lodge. So it's really interesting, and I would definitely recommend you to pick both of them up, actually, because Lucy Foley is quite a good author, and I would generally speaking recommend both of them. Then I have two more thriller books to talk to you about because I really enjoyed them. I rated them 3-star and 4 stars, and basically they're both by J.P. Delaney. The first book I'm going to talk about is The Girl Before by J.P. Delaney, which I read 3 stars. So in this story, we are following two timelines with two women. Basically, we have one character who is Emma, and basically she was living in the house. They had a break-in, so it really scared her, and she wants to move to a new place. And the new place that she moves into is at the extreme level of minimalism. It embodies the extreme level of minimalism, so there are so many rules that she has to follow, and we get to see her live them. And then on the other hand, she's in the past, all right, and in the present we also following this character who Jane, I think, who after a personal tragedy needs a place to stay and all of that. She also comes to stay in this minimalist house, and then she gets to know about this mysterious older character, Emma, because Emma disappears. So the question is, what happens, how, and all of that. So it's a really interesting book, and at one point the tension was just off the charts. I would really recommend you to read it. My mom also read it, and she also enjoyed it. J.P. Delaney is a new author for me because I haven't read any of her other books before. This is the first one, and I really did enjoy it. So as a beginner in thrillers, mysteries, I think this one was a really good one for me to start with. Then the other J.P. Delaney book that I read was Believe Me, which I rated a 4-star because I thought this was such a supreme level of psychological, thriller that I just had to rate it 4 stars. Now, in this story, we follow this British girl whose name is Emma, and she's living in America without a green card. So to earn money, she has to do a ton of odd jobs here and there. And one of those jobs is to work with a law firm. If the wife thinks that the husband is straying, then Emma goes in, acts as if she wants to flirt with the husband, and then basically traps him and provides evidence for the divorce and all of that. But what happens when one of these women is violently murdered? The police suspect that it's the husband, who is a very dangerous serial killer or something like that, because it's been quite some time, I don't exactly remember. And now Emma has to work with the police to try and find out if the husband is really a killer or not. So this one was really an unexpected thriller read, which I really loved, and the ending, the twist was not at all expected, and I think that is what really made all the difference. But yeah, that said, between these two books, I definitely think that Believe Me has many more elements of mystery, of the thrill, than The Girl Before. So that's that, and I think that those are all the 5 thriller books that I read in May. Then I read 2 graphic novels. One is Yojimbot, which I rated 3 stars, which is basically set in kind of a dystopian Japan where there are samurai robots. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, I do have to say that this also felt a lot like a comic strip because only a very limited amount of the story has been released so far. So that said, I really enjoyed it. The art style was just as good, but it was really short, and I wish I had waited for a longer period of time before I picked it up, because reading such short strips is not my thing personally, but definitely recommend. Then I also read a graphic novel adaptation of the much loved children's classic The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, and I really enjoyed it, and I rated it 4 stars. It's very hopeful, like most middle grade children's fictions are. It ends on a note of hope. It really uplifts you, and I really enjoyed it. The art style was also very clean and subtle and really refreshing, and at the same time very peaceful, I think, and I really enjoyed that one. These 2 are the only graphic novels I read this month. They were both quite short, so I think I'm gonna keep my review short as well, because it's useless to just drag the book review unnecessarily. Then I also am going to talk about the let's see, 1 2 3 4 5 amazing romance books, adult romance books that I read, which I think you should definitely check out. The first romance book that I read was an audiobook rather, and it is Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren. And this is sort of a second chance romance because the characters become friends first and then something happens and they're enemies, and then years later they meet again as adults, because the first time they met they were like teenagers basically. But yeah, obviously I have to say that this one was a really amazing book. I read it in under a night because it was so wholesome, so good, and it focused so much on the character arcs, character developments from when they were teenagers to to adults, and individually they had to go through so much trauma, so much incidents that made them grow up. So all of that was really good. And also all of these romance books are really short, so I would say definitely go for them if you're feeling like that a reading slump might be approaching or anything like that. I always suggest romance books when you feel like a reading slump is coming, because that really works for me. So then I read a book by Annika Martin which is called The Billionaire's Wake Up Call Girl. So this one was again really interesting. I rated it 4 stars. So what happens in the story is, I don't actually remember the names of the characters because like I said, it's been such a long time, but we had these 2 characters, and the guy is the boss in this pharmaceutical firm, and she's one of the social media marketing employees or something like that. And basically he's a very grumpy person, and she's kind of very sunshine-y person. So she has to find a wake-up call service for him, because those things are available in other countries, it seems, because to me in India that seems totally unfathomable, but what can I say? So basically a wake-up call is like somebody calls you to wake you up in the morning, and she's told to find one for the boss, but everybody hates him because he's so grumpy and all of that. So just by some sort of mistake, she and her friend call up, and then something happens, and then she ends up being his wake up call girl. So slowly their relationship starts from there, and it's hidden identities mystery. So like she knows who he is, but he doesn't know who she is. So I would say that definitely go in. This one is a very good, like, laugh your socks off kind of funny romance, which I really loved a lot, and I would really definitely recommend you to pick this one up. The other Annika Martin book that I read was Most Eligible Billionaire by which I rated 3 stars. And basically in the story we have this guy who is a sort of CEO, and then the girl is, well, a dog whisperer kind of. So what happens is that a major owner of the company where the guy is a CEO dies and leaves a majority of the shares to the dog. And she also stipulates in her will that whatever the dog says will be interpreted by the dog whisperer. So basically the girl is in charge of the majority share of the company. So we see them become enemies to lovers. So it's really interesting, and I rated it 3 stars, but that's because I think I personally enjoyed the other book, The Billionaire's Wake Up Call Girl, more than this one. But generally saying, Annika Martin's books are really funny, really amazing, with a ton of character development, funny moments, sassy moments. So yeah, definitely recommend this one. The next book was one of the best romance novels I have read in a long time, and it is Blurred Lines by Lauren Lane. And basically it follows the trope of friends to lovers and friends with benefits, both of which I really enjoy, and both of which, if done really well, really enhances the story. And I think this one was done really well. So there's these 2 people, they are roommates, the girl and the guy, and what happens is that the boy is basically like a man whore, but as she describes him, but she has been in a relationship for quite some time. However, the guy breaks up with her suddenly, and so she decides that her roommate, who really believes in casual sex, seems to have it really easy, so she thinks that she'll do it for herself as well. But then these 2 hook up, and will it remain just that, or will feelings develop? That is the question, and I'm sure you guys know the answer, which is very obvious. But the way it is done is really good, and it's it's not rushed at all, and I think that really matters, the timing with these kinds of stories with friends to lovers. So yeah, I think this one was done really well, and I rated it 4 stars, and I definitely recommend you to pick this one up. The next and the last book in this whole wrap-up video that I'm doing is another romance book that I read that I really loved, and I rated it 4 stars again, and I think this one was just off the charts. The writing was impeccable. If you're a literary student, this one is a book that you'll really enjoy, because the level of literary or the reading level for this is quite high, I would say. That said, I am going to read out the synopsis because I think it describes it best. After being left at the altar by her cold and brilliant professor, Church Casson, I still don't know, Charlotte Tenpenny had to leave school to take care of her younger brother. But a fateful night brings Church and his delicious drugging kisses back into Charlotte's life, and it stirs up a reckoning years in the making. Student-professor romance, kind of forbidden, second chance after a long break. Really good, and I loved it so much. It's by Sierra Simone, I think I said that, but you should definitely check this one out because it's worth it, and I think just something you should definitely read. I rated it 4 stars. I'm rambling at this point, but I really love this book. I mean, being a literature student, especially the way they talk about certain things, it's really good. So that's it, guys. We have reached the end of this video. I'm hoping that this one is going to be a very short video because I do not go over all the books I read, which I do in the other videos. I mean, if I read lesser books, it would have been easy, but already I have talked about 20 books, which it's a lot, and I'm gonna have I'm gonna have a headache when I have to edit the video finally, but whatever. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you like this format where I talk only about the top, books I read in the month rather than all of them. Let me know what you think, and we can work something out as you all want. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned. I'll see you all very soon, and take care. Peace out. Bye.